So you are not creative. You don't know how to write, how to sing, how to paint, how to dance, how to express yourself. You have nothing to do with the creative arts. I would like to just give you in this very short video an amazing tool that you can start leveraging right now to start creating things in your life. And without further ado, the basic tool of creation that everyone has, including you, is your own thinking. What do I mean by that? Well, if you think about it, thinking is an act of creation. If you are just looking around, unless you are in a forest or somewhere, um, everything that you see around you, which is created by the human mind or by the human hand, originated initially as a thought in someone's mind, right? Anything, right? I have here a pillow with me. This pillow first originated in someone's mind, and then from that original seed of let's create a pillow, or I would be interesting to create a pillow, a lot of related thoughts started to pop up in other people's minds, which all contributed ultimately to bringing this pillow into existence. Why do I give you this trivial example, you might think? Well, because everything that is created in your life, especially of course if you talk about if we discuss about like human object, like physical objects created by humans, like material things, which we are all more interested in acquiring for some reason um, in our lives, everything started as a thought. And let's just go way back in the past and think about something grandiose that was created by the human hands and the human mind. Let's take the pyramids in Egypt. Those originated as well as thoughts in most probably the minds of some powerful and influential pharaohs or something, right? I don't really know the history of pyramids, but I can imagine that it was originally someone, human being, a person, thinking about a way to perpetuate their physical existence indefinitely in the future, right? Create some sort of a impressive monument that could act as a proper representation of his own physical existence in this world, and leave that as a legacy to future generations and to their people. Why can't we employ this very basic tool in our lives in a masterful way to create those things that we want to create? An easy answer to it, and the default answer to it, is that some external circumstances don't let us do it. We might not have money to buy a pillow, right? Or we might depend on other people to facilitate that thing in our life. And this is a good segue into talking about resourcefulness, because it's one thing to have resources or lack resources, and another thing to become resourceful enough so that you can acquire the things that will ultimately allow you to bring this into existence, or hopefully everyone can bring a pillow into existence in their lives. But even like more demanding projects, they follow ultimately the same pattern. It first appears in your mind as a thought, and then that thought, if it's generated consciously by you, it's even better, because it means that it's important to you for some reason. You want something, you desire an object or whatever. And then if it's important enough for you, you will find ways of bringing that into existence by first thinking about a plan of how you can acquire it. Either you have to make more money, where you just have to simply like make an order on Amazon or wherever and just order it and then find it at your door the next day. There is some action that you have to take, but that action is initiated against thoughts, an initial original thought that then gets consolidated and gets solidified with more and more thoughts, which compel you to take a certain action. And this is the case for everything that we want to achieve in life, be it a material thing or something which is of an internal value that we appreciate. What I am specifically interested in is not how I can get things and material objects in my life. I'm in a phase in my life where, because I've been um, forced, let's say, to think deeply about what's important really in life and how I should prioritize my time in order to live my life in the best way possible, I am slightly obsessed with improving myself, with this journey of self development, of transformation. Because I didn't find yet something more rewarding than each day investigating deeply how can I improve myself, how can I become a better person, to leave a better legacy for myself 1 year from now and for everyone who will be around me 1 year from now. Um, I think there are few, if any, better ways of spending time and energy. Um, and I have to think about thinking as this incredibly powerful tool because we employ thinking in order to get stuff, in order to get to stuff, in order to manifest things in our lives, right? And the moment I started to look at my thoughts as tools of creation and bringing things into physicality, it all changed for me. Um, because I knew at that point that this is a very powerful tool that I better start controlling more. Specifically saying that I don't want to spend a lot of time thinking by default, thinking someone else's narrative, thinking those unconscious thoughts that just pop in my mind without me wanting them to be there. The way I rationalize this unconscious thinking is something automatic, like thinking happens to you. It's not like you create thinking, you create your own thoughts based on your own reasoning and understanding and needs. There are thoughts which are reflective of other people's projections and other people's incentives. Maybe it could be also the incentive of the society at large for us to think in a certain way. Or we imagine things to be in a certain way so we can feel that we fit better in our community and so on. But we rarely think about the creative nature of those thoughts. Are they really useful? Are these thoughts actually improving someone's life for real, in a way that it's palpable, in a way that we can measure? And more often than not, we see that it's not the case. Most of the time, we are caught in this kind of repetitive thinking pattern, in this negative cyclical loop of worry, of um, obsessing about problems which, if solved, don't impact dramatically our lives in a positive way. And however, we seem not to be able to escape from it. And it's really amazing for me that we, as adults especially, just continue living as if this is something that we cannot change. And the moment you develop the awareness to realize that you can actually become the one who controls your own thoughts, um, it's like discovering this amazing superpower, right? It's it's like channeling this kind of incredible force for a good purpose instead of ruining ruining it, ruining it uh, for stuff that doesn't matter, and on top of that, just makes your life experience worse. So if you really look at thought as being this creative force in your life, you just have to start playing with it. You have to start cultivating thought as your best friend and your best ally in your project of achieving whatever is meaningful to you. Because this is what this is all about ultimately. The very fact that you are capable to consciously decide what you want to create for yourself will ultimately determine the way that you live in your own subjective reality. Because everything, the more conscious awareness you have and the more conscious choice you develop along the way, the more your life will reflect your conscious intentions. And your conscious intentions typically are ones which are not forced, which are not reactive, which are deeply aligned with what you care about the most. And isn't this what we all want? To live in a world which is to our liking. It is possible, right? And you just have to start small. First, on working on yourself, because if you work on yourself and you have this as a foundation, if you build your self esteem, if you build your respect with yourself, if you start to trust yourself that whatever you put your mind to, you can achieve, then you can translate this kind of confidence into anything else that comes your way. And most things that come your way are not things that you can ultimately control as such. So it's a very important skill to develop, to know that ultimately what you want can manifest and will manifest, irrespective of how circumstances present themselves today, irrespective of people's support or the lack of it. It's not that you don't care, it's not that you have to live alone in your mind, but you cannot project people's support as a necessary thing for you to succeed. You cannot ask of those you care about the most to actively contribute and potentially be responsible for you not succeeding, because it's too much of a burden to put on them. If you think about it, it's a disservice that you do to them. If you really want something in your life for the betterment of others, because this is what I'm interested in, I want to improve myself, I want to develop my capabilities, to waste as little of my potential as possible throughout my journey in this world. So if I'm on this quest, I find it to be unfair for even my closest people to actively support me so that I can succeed at that. Because if I know that this is important for me and for them, and if I do it for them, I cannot create this kind of dependency, because I would then build resentment for not maybe receiving the kind of support that I want. I am lucky enough to have very supportive family members and friends. At the same time, I know that I don't require their support in order to invest in myself and become the best version of myself that I can become. Because this is my responsibility. This is the kind of legacy that I want to live for them and to build for myself ultimately, because I know that this investment today will lead to the kind of appreciation for myself and my efforts 1 year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, that cannot be ultimately bought with any kind of money, with any amount. The way that I feel about myself, knowing that these efforts are purposeful and meant to build this kind of legacy, positive legacy for my children, my friends, my family, and for myself ultimately, this is something that can never be bought. This is something I cannot buy with money. And I don't need money for, which is amazing. Because I don't feel that there is anything stopping me at this point. And getting to this point of having this kind of fully developed, embodied knowledge and confidence that I don't need anything in particular in order to reach my highest potential, it's absolute freedom. This kind of extreme responsibility and control over my own actions and my own outcomes in life, though it might appear at first a bit scary, because ultimately I cannot control anything, so how could I say that I am in control? Well, it seems scary, but at the same time, I know that the real control that I will ever have is on my own mind and how I employ my mind and the thoughts that my mind can produce in order to get whatever I want out of life. And because I don't set any kind of fixed deadline on this transformation, because this transformation lasts for a lifetime, I am not forced and compelled into acting now reactively against external pressures. The pressure is mine, and I build it and I sustain it and I generate it according to a pace that feels right for me, that allows me to, first of all, be grateful for existing and for living life to the fullest in priority, because tomorrow is not guaranteed. So I cannot discount the preciousness of this present moment and of today for a hypothetical, better, idealized future, which would relieve me of whatever problems I have in the present. Right? That's that's a trap. That's a trap. And when you experience enough external success and you are in a point in your life where you don't have any huge lacks, um, you are forced into this realization. You are forced to be truthful to yourself and recognize to yourself that ultimately the only thing that matters is how you feel about yourself when you're by yourself. Um, for us men, it's very simple actually. What we want in life is to be respected and to feel that we can contribute to our family, to our friends, to our community, to the world at large. This feeling of mattering and contributing to the world and be respected for our contribution and for our efforts on a day-to-day basis is all that matters. This is literally everything for us. And I can afford to talk about men in general because I'm not special in that regard. And there are things which are so crystal clear for me that I can make this kind of generalization. Of course, there are exceptions, or maybe people who think they need something else, but deep down, it's just a symptom of not getting this kind of recognition in other ways, right? And people impose it. Like some men desire status and power so that people directly show respect and recognition, right? But it's not the best way to do it. It's a much better alternative to get someone's respect without ever asking for it. It's a much better alternative to be able to influence someone positively without actively trying to do it, by simply showing them an example that they could be inspired by. I think this is maybe the biggest secrets that I found in this quest of mine of, transforming myself and developing and growing and finding my place in the world, that there is no shortcut to this process. The only real shortcut is to just confront things as they come in the best state of mind possible, fully acknowledging, fully accepting life for whatever it presents to us, trusting that this is the exact thing that we need in that moment of our evolvement, of our evolution, of our level of consciousness. And if you look at it from this angle, everything is then perfect in a way, right? Nothing is off. Nothing is ever off. Everything is as it should be. If it's frustrating, it's just a mind stance. It's a mind position. It's an overlay. Being frustrated, being in friction with what is a symptom of a misalignment with the natural unfolding of life. And this is the good opportunity to just check in with yourself and with your thoughts, and look at what you're thinking in that moment, and see for yourself how you are negotiating with reality, wishing it to be different than it always and already is, which is again one of those incredibly strange things that we perpetually do endlessly. And that's intriguing, because we never catch ourselves realizing how futile it is to always try to negotiate with what is. And I also talk about myself here, because it's not like I'm an enlightened guru. I'm always catching myself ruminating on things that I deem in the moment to just be, once I realize, I realize it's just a wasted energy. So in so I now correct faster than I used to, and look at that opportunity, look at that situation, which is maybe frustrating or slightly painful, as an opportunity to learn something uniquely valuable in my journey. I look at it to see the very specific lesson that I can only get from that experience and from nowhere else. I fully allow it, I fully adopt it, I fully accept it as it is. Because this acceptance, this radical acceptance, is what allows us to actually see the lessons there. If we reject it, then we just missed an opportunity. And like everything that we reject and refuse to accept and integrate in our life typically tends to repeat itself until we actually learn the lesson. Um, Sometimes it repeats 2 times, 3 times, sometimes it can repeat hundreds of times. And we grow more and more and more frustrated with it. And the very resistance is what will reinforce it. And it will just drive us crazy, and it will pilot our own life ultimately, because this is all what we will be thinking of, because we just want it, out of our life. But the fact that you're resisting it, it's what gives it more energy, right? This is the paradox. um, so I would like to end this clip on something tactical, right? How can you make use of your thoughts in a good way? Well, first of all, you have to develop this conscious awareness when you realize that you are being simply caught in a negative thinking pattern, or in a negative loop. You are thinking about the same things, you are basically worrying without any kind of resolution, and you cannot just escape it. That thing, that tension, that emotional tension, that that misalignment can be used as a trigger to just realize what's happening to you and take control. What does it mean to take control? Well, start thinking about something that you want to create instead. Start thinking about things which you would like to have in your life rather than what you are obsessing over unconsciously. Why is this critical? Because, first of all, you already know that by simply trying to push things away, they will not go away. Um, the mind is operating as a guided missile, right? If you want, you have to have a target. If you don't give your mind a target, the mind will simply default into thinking about things which are more relevant for your existence. It will think in terms of survival needs. It will have fear based thoughts simply because the mind gives voice to a brain which evolved in conditions of scarcity, of existential threats, which luckily enough is not the case anymore these days in the societies that we live in. So, by realizing this kind of default nature of operation of your mind, you can tamper with it. You can stop this flow, this unnecessary thinking pattern, and start thinking about things that you want to have instead in your life. And by always catching yourself, by by increasing the frequency in which you can catch yourself thinking about things that you don't want, and just point your mind into the direction of something that you want to achieve in your life, you will see that you will start to default more easily into thinking about the things that you wish in your life instead of the old thinking patterns. And this is basically uh, just an active rewiring of the neural connections in your brain, simply because you will break the old patterns and you will reinforce new ones. Now, if you have been stuck for years in thinking repetitive thoughts which are non-productive, they are very difficult to disrupt because they have a lot of momentum. Think about, like, I think a good analogy here is like a paved road or a highway versus an unbeaten path. um, Thinking repetitively about something obsessively negative typically creates this kind of highway, right, in your brain, like neurons that fire together, wire together. This kind of mental activity, of neural activity, which corresponds to this negative thinking, is just activating itself very fast. It's very um, easy for the brain, and also not too costly metabolically, to simply engage this kind of reactive pattern of brain activity, because it gives you something familiar, right? This is your familiar. Even if that familiar is bad and you would like to get rid of it, it's there. And the brain likes predictability. And whenever you want to develop a new theory about something that you are familiar with, your mind defaults into some preset of beliefs that give you this kind of familiarity with the concept. That's why it's very hard to escape old narratives, right? Things that happen ultimately only in our mind, that we reinforce enough times with selective accumulation of proof to just reinforce those beliefs. And those beliefs, they generate a certain type of thoughts which are simply reinforcing themselves in perpetuity. And we live effectively in this kind of mind-made prison just because we reinforce with our own thoughts and our own words and our own internal dialogue something that becomes so familiar in time that we take it for objective truth. This is our reality, right? And in order to get away from it, in order to escape from it, we have first of all to see that this is not real. We have to start building a new kind of goal that we can, go towards. We start building new kind of beliefs. We start to accumulate proof to show that ultimately what we want to achieve is not impossible, and start building momentum so that the old patterns of neural activity, they get disrupted, and the mind and the brain basically can rewire so that whenever we are thinking about something, that something is replacing the old something, right? And because the new something is productive and is something that you want in your life, your mind will now start to default into thinking good kind of thoughts, which will inevitably lead you to this destination in a certain amount of time, right? But you need consistency. You need to repeat those things enough time so that this kind of rewiring happens. So I hope that this discussion illustrated to you the power of your own thoughts and how the thoughts that you have repetitively in your mind ultimately get to direct your own life, lead you to take certain actions, and also keep you in a certain subjective reality that you constructed for yourself, most probably without your active contribution, without you willingly or actively trying to create it for yourself. But now you also see, hopefully, that you have control, that you can interrupt these patterns by simply being triggered when they appear, by feeling the tension and just realizing that the tension is caused by the thoughts which are not really conducive to an outcome that you want to have in your life. And break the pattern, break the spell, right? And think about the other things that you want to have instead, and just start building, the reality that you want for yourself, the actual subjective reality that you live in on a day-to-day basis, and things will just start to change, um, rather dramatically, and you'll be surprised. If you resonated with my way of looking at thoughts as the most powerful tool, and you find yourself in a transformation journey, and you would like some assistance to create the kind of reality and life that you want for yourself, just click on the link in the description and you can book a free coaching call where I can assist to the best of my abilities. Until next time, enjoy the journey.